Okay, I wish to acknowledge that this meeting is taking place on the unceded territory of the Coast Salish peoples. Tum-Tumay-Waitin, or Belcarra, is home to an ancestral village of the Tsleil-Waututh Nation. We're thankful to conduct our work within their territory. So if I could call the meeting to order at 7:02 p.m. and we have an approval of the agenda, and I've noted that Councillor Drake will not be with us at the meeting tonight, and we will look to, if we could, get amendment to the agenda to remove item 6.2. So Councillor Clark moving it, Councillor.
I'll second.
Now, thank you. So the amendment's on the floor, and all those in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, and now the motion's been amended, so we can approve the agenda as amended. So we'll look to Councillor moved by
So moved.
Clark and Councillor
Snell.
Snell. Thank you very much. It's on the floor. Any discussion for the regular approving the agenda for the regular council meeting, June 20th, 2022? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, and it carries. Okay, and that the agenda, okay, so we already moved ahead on that, so we're good. So we're on adoption of the minutes. The regular council meeting, June 6, 2022. We need a mover and a seconder to adopt them.
Moved.
Thank you, Councillor Snell, for seconding, Councillor Clark for moving. And it's on the floor that the minutes from the regular council meeting held June 6, 2022 be adopted. Any discussion, council? Not seeing any. I'll look to call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Note that the ayes carry it. It's carried in the affirmative. And so at this point, we move to delegations and presentations. It is my pleasure on behalf of the Village of Belcarra and our community to welcome Member of Parliament Benita Zarrillo, who was elected to serve as our Member of Parliament in the federal election held in September 2021. She previously served 3 terms on City Council. MP Zarrillo has 3 critic positions: disability, inclusion, and health and infrastructure and communities. So, Benita Zarrillo, thank you very much and welcome to our meeting. And you're welcome to go ahead and make a presentation, and then council may like to talk with you about any priorities that council has. So MP Zarrillo, looking for you on the screen. Welcome. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you so much. I thank you so much for this opportunity, and I do look forward to the questions, and I want to give the majority of the time to Mayor and Council to ask questions. So thank you, Mayor Ross, and very nice to see all of you. Hopefully we will be able to see each other out in the community this summer. Hope we'll get some summer soon. I'm here in Ottawa on the unceded and traditional territory of the Anishinaabe and Algonquin Nation. And as you mentioned, Mayor Ross, I have 3 portfolios, which is disability inclusion, the infrastructure and communities, and also the health file. And I did review some of the priorities that the councillors had brought forward over the last year or so around asset management, fire protection, those sort of things. But if you don't mind, I'm just going to take a minute to just talk a little bit about what I've been doing here in Ottawa in regards to our community.
Sure, please go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So I guess one of the pieces is the infrastructure and communities. My focus has been around rural communities, Indigenous and Northern. They don't necessarily get as much airtime as the larger urban communities, and this is an area of focus for me and also some of my colleagues. I also am working on care economy, and that's just around the fact that many of us are aging. Many of us are in need of care for ourselves, our children, and also our parents. So there's a lot of opportunity in the area of care. 1 in 5 people in Canada right now works in the care economy. But as we know, funding is desperately needed, and also improvement in working conditions. It's important for Belcarra. It's important for our community that is aging, sometimes faster than other areas of Canada. And lastly, on the disability inclusion, it kind of goes to that same file. 1.25 of us at some point in our life will most likely carry some type of a disability. Many of us want to age in place, and we need to start having those conversations federally as well. I went through the housing study that Belcarra had done recently around the type of housing and the ability to age in place, even for those living in Belcarra. So I'm interested in any thoughts that you would like to share with me around housing and needs of housing. And even access to housing, and it goes back to infrastructure. So really, I'd like to give the time to Mayor and Council. I want to apologize right now. I believe this is my second time on the agenda. Totally my fault in a misunderstanding within my office. So I apologize, and I thank you for your patience and the opportunity to come tonight.
Thank you very much for your thorough work on that, and also without question, thank you for offering an apology. And I know sometimes that happens with communications, both within offices and outside of them. So just to let you know that Belcarra is probably unique in that we will open up the floor for council to ask you questions. And you've touched upon some of our priorities and looked at some things, and some that are in your critics role. And then after that, we'll go to the audience and see if the audience has any questions, and they're able to ask one question, and then we're hopeful if they do that you could provide an answer. So
Absolutely.
Let's open it up right now to council. Any councillor, go through council, see if anybody has a question, wants to talk. Councillor Snell, if you could go ahead, please.
Yes, good evening, and thank you for your earlier presentation. You've certainly got some impressive portfolios there. One point I would raise, that there's a lot of issues in this village, and a lot of them are, because we are between forest and sea, a lot of our issues touch on areas which are governed more federally than they are provincially. And one example of that is, for several decades now, going back through several members of parliament, this village has been trying to have some control over the pollution actually in Bedwell Bay. And we did make considerable headway probably 10, 15 years ago. I believe it was under James Moore at the time. It really got a lot of traction. We managed to move the issue right the way through to Transport Canada, that then became Environment Canada. The process stalled. And I just wonder how we over this side can get that traction back on federally regulated and controlled issues when we have so much overpowering support from our local politicians. So I'll leave my question at that, but I'm happy to amplify further. There are volumes of correspondence between Ottawa and our village and Victoria on the issue of the discharge of sewage into Bedwell Bay. But as I say, traction began, but it has stopped. And it'd be lovely if we could get that traction going again. Thank you very much for taking my question.
Thank you, Councillor Snell. Benita, go ahead, please.
Thank you very much, and thanks for the question. Yeah, actually, I did hear this even on some of the doors up in Bedwell Bay, and I am working on some sewage discharge and some contamination that's happening in the watershed. So I have been exploring and gathering some of the correspondence in this area. Can I ask Councillor Snell that you and I have a conversation offline as well on the opportunities in the watershed? I was able to identify some species at risk, which allowed it to be elevated a little bit. And I wouldn't mind just connecting with you on some of the additional opportunities to elevate this. But absolutely, I heard it on the doorsteps. I know it is an ongoing issue, and I know there is regulation against release of the sewage, but it's not necessarily being enforced. But I'd like to take that. Maybe we could set up a conversation. I'm back in the riding next week, and we could connect on it.
Thank you very much through the chair. Thank you very much for that response. I would love to share what I have with you. And of course, the contamination we're talking about is the contamination to us poor folks that are in and out of the water down there. So it really is an important issue to many of us. And some of the photographs that have been circulating are really quite unpleasantly graphic. So I'll share those with you too. But anyway, so I look forward to being able to pick up the threads on that one, and perhaps we can do that through the office, through our acting CAO, if that's appropriate. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
I'm
you.
just going to say our office can facilitate that. And thank you, Councillor Snell, for your great question and for your willingness to be involved with Benita Zarello. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. Looking to our other councillors. Councillor, anybody else have a question or a thought? Councillor Clark? No. Councillor Wilder? No. So, or Councillor Clark, do you have a question?
No, just a comment. Thank you for being here tonight, Bonita. I appreciate it. Thanks.
Okay. And so if it's all right, I'm not seeing anybody else on council right now. So we'll look to, we have Joe Elworthy. Go ahead, please.
Yes,
moving to
thank
the
you, Mayor,
audience.
and thank you, Benita, for being here tonight. And I do appreciate Councillor Snell's comments, and I'm sure he'll also reference the other issue that's bothering us, which is noise pollution that comes off that water. But that's a total nuisance to us also here. But I'll leave that. That's not my question. Mine is just a comment that I see you've got the health, portfolio too, which is interesting in the world I live in, which is health and benefits, and also within that, of course, is dental, which falls into health and benefits. And I should say that just a comment on to see that this government moving forward, combined on the issue of dental, national dental care, I think is really huge steps forward. And I hope that you can also further that by including also national pharmacare. These are huge to Canadians in society. And as you point out, we're an aging community in many ways in Belcarton, not all of us, some of us, right? And so these are important issues to us. So they're just my comments. Thank you, Mayor, for being the opportunity to speak.
Absolutely. And Benita, did you want to respond anyway? Thank you, Joe.
Yes, thank you so much. And I just on the, I'm going to go right to the dental care and the pharmacare with the cost of living. And we know we do need to attract more young families in our riding, not just in Belcarra, but across the riding, and to be able to take care of the cost of dental care for kids. It helps families, and to be able to take care of the pharmacare is going to help families too. So, us aging, but also young families, it's an opportunity for them to be able to lessen their bills in the home. So we are pushing on the dental care to happen this year for kids, and the Pharmacare Act infrastructure is getting put together. But I also wanted to thank Joe for the comments around the pollution. And I did actually have a meeting with the port recently in regards to a couple of issues. And I'm going to have an opportunity to meet with them again soon. And I will raise this issue around noise. It does affect also wildlife and fish and all of the mammals that live around there too. So thank you for that.
Okay. Thank you very much, Joe, and thanks, Benita. Anybody else in the audience would like to make a comment? I'll go on once, going twice, going three times. We'll come back to council, and not seeing any hands from council, I'll look to both make a very brief comment and also to thank Benita. I'm very pleased, as someone who worked in the school system, that we are going to have, it looks like, dental care for young children. I just think of all the things we could do to give people a healthy head start in life, that's one that's tremendous. And I think on the pharmacare, it has always struck me about the countries around the world who get together and use the power of combined buying to purchase. And I just think it's something that hopefully we can get to too. So I hope you and the other MPs in that house can look to make some progress. And as Joe said, first of all, on dental care for children. So Bonita, thank you very much for coming and joining us. And thank you for your willingness to reach out to one of our counselors, and appreciate your ongoing work both here in the constituency and in Ottawa. And we can probably guarantee that it's a tad bit warmer here in Belcarra than it is in Ottawa, I think.
Yeah, I think so most of the time. Yes.
Okay, well, thank you very much for coming. And we have this wonderful other part of Belcarra. Once you have been here, you're allowed to quietly leave at any time. You're not obligated to stay. Okay,
Thank you so
So-
much. I will turn my camera off, and thank you so much for hosting me tonight. Thank you.
oh, you're more than welcome. Thank you very much for coming. Okay. So reports number 5, and we have Richard White, and I'm going to ask him if he could outline the next report. So 5.1, Richard.
Thank you, Your Worship. So this was a follow-up report to one that was produced, submitted by CAO Beck, and it concerns the Metro Vancouver's interest in adopting a new regional growth strategy. It's timely. The growth strategy that's in place has been around for a decade, and they're now trying to update and modernize the plan. The normal process would ask each municipality to accept the plan. And that proposal was before council 2 weeks ago, last council meeting. We have now been asked by council subsequent to that discussion to report back on a couple of topics that were not addressed, I guess, in the regional growth strategy, but are of abiding issue for the village and council of the village. And that concerns water supply, fire suppression related to it, and the Belcarra North Road and regional parks. Metro has an interest there. They're the wholesaler of water in the region. They maintain the dams, the reservoirs that contain the water that supplies region with water. And they also provide the trunk services. The Metro has, through the District of North Vancouver, provided water in the last, I guess, 20 years to the village. And there's concerns about its adequacy moving forward, particularly for fire suppression purposes. And as the report indicates, we've talked to regional staff, and they're happy to come and talk about that in more detail. They don't think it's something that needs to be addressed in the regional growth strategy. It's not an issue in many other places. I mean, the growing threat of wildfires is, but the adequacy of water supply is not. But it's a particular issue for us, and the Metro is prepared to come and have a discussion about how that could be improved. So that's the point of, I guess, of the proposed resolution, is to keep that on that thought on the agenda and for further discussion to occur. Similarly, the road issue and providing access to Belcarra North from the larger part of the municipality, that's something that is sticky because of the Metro Parks and the non-commercial nature of Metro Parks. It was a grant from the province to have that parkland created in the first place. And an issue about the commercialization of a road, I guess, is something that has to work its way through. And they're also willing to talk about that in more detail in the future. So I think the thought that council may have had 2 weeks ago was let's keep that, let's find some way of making that more official. And what we've suggested by way of the resolution that we're proposing here is that both points, the water supply and the road issue, be raised as a part of our response, in addition to accepting the regional growth strategy in its present form, that these two things be considered in the near future in a joint meeting, and maybe in committee at the regional board level. Various committees exist for these types of discussions, or it could be something that happens in the village itself. Anyways, the form of the discussion is not prescribed, but we're suggesting that you make that request of Metro. Your Worship, I can respond to questions.
Sure. And council, do you want to, well, we're getting questions from you. Do you want to move the motion, or do you want to go through a series of questions and then do it?
I can move the motion.
Okay, go ahead, please.
So, hang on.
That's okay.
So yes, so I'm gonna move. Would you like me to read the whole recommendation?
Yes, if you could, just
Yep, okay.
so that
Okay.
we're clear, and then Paul.
Okay,
will
so
have it.
the recommendation is that the Village of Belcarre accept Metro 2050 Metro Vancouver Regional District Regional Growth Strategy Bylaw number 1339/2022, attached to the letter from the Chair of the Metro Vancouver Boards of Directors dated May 3rd of 2022, in request that the following Village of Belcarre concerns be considered in the near future. 1, joint opportunities for improvements to the Belcarre water system to enable improved water storage, flows, and fire suppression capacity in the village and for metro parks. And number 2, continue cooperation for the eventual provision of road access from Belcarre to both Belcarre North and nearby conservation and recreation lands in Belcarre Regional Park. So I
Okay.
move that motion.
And we'll look for a seconder. Councillor Snell, thank you. So it's appropriately on the floor for discussion. Councillor Clark will return to you, and please, if you'd like to make any comments, go ahead.
Thank you. So I guess 2 quick comments. I think it's important for those discussions to obviously to take place and for us to look into and talk to them. What is it that what improvements can Metro Vancouver help us with as far as those 2 projects goes? Yeah, and I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Clark. And I'll look to other members of council to comment. Anybody has a comment? Not seeing anything, any comments from council, so we'll now go to the audience and we'll return to council to finish the motion. So I'm looking at the audience, and if anybody would like to make a comment, this would be the appropriate time in the audience for you to register your desire to make a comment. So going once, going twice, going 3 times, bit of a like an auction, and so we will now return to council. Okay, council, any other comments? I'm looking, I'm not seeing any. Councillor Snell, go ahead, please.
Yes, thank you. I would certainly, through the chair, thank Richard for his report, and it's encouraging that we are getting some solid, sensible follow-up to issues that are raised on previous council meetings. So I believe that's extremely positive and in full support of the motion. Thank you.
Okay, good. Thank you very much. I'll look to call the question. All those in favor, raise your hand and
Aye.
say aye. And I note that it carries, and in the affirmative, the ayes carry. Okay, so we will now move to 5.2, and I'm going to ask Stuart to outline the next report if he could. Stuart, please.
Stuart, you're muted.
Did he go away?
Um,
He's got no audio or video.
yeah.
There he is.
Can you hear me? Sorry about that. I don't know what happened, but I just disappeared. So I'll
Well,
start all over again.
I was going to say we missed some of your finest words, but welcome back.
Thank you. Recommendation that council approves a resolution to apply for a federal grant from the Canada Community Building Fund for Asset Management and Climate Change Planning. So this is to continue in the asset management and long-term capital planning for Belcarre, which began in 2021. And the objectives in the second phase of planning are to consider not only the replacement of the assets, but how they will look moving forward, and considering environmental impact, geotechnical concerns, evolving drainage issues, and how the village wants to grow as implemented in the OCP. So we are trying to keep the application in as general terms as possible, but we have listed some objectives or some subject areas in the report, which should also reflect the criteria in the funding requirements, which are long-term infrastructure plans, studies, strategies, or systems related to asset management, which may include software implementation, and as well as consultants' costs. So the strategic priorities fund applications are open from April 1st to June 30th, 2022. And the capacity building fund stream builds on asset management planning, long-term infrastructure planning, and integrated community sustainability planning. And the completion date for the grant funding projects is September 23rd, 1 year from now. Back to the chair, please.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate that. And we will look to get that motion moved by
So moved.
Councillor Clark and seconded by Councillor Snell. So it's appropriately on the floor for discussion. So if someone would like to start off on council, that'd be great.
Sure, I can put a comment in.
Sure.
Thank you very much, Stuart, for the report through the chair. Yeah, no, this looks pretty good. So there's no reason for me not to support. So I will be supporting this tonight. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Clark. Councillor, anybody else on council would like to speak? Okay, so at this point, we'll move to the audience and we'll look to see if anybody in the audience would like to make a comment. So not seeing anybody, we'll look to come back to council and any further discussion. And if not, we'll look to be able to. Councillor Snell, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I just make a comment. I support this totally. And I would make the point that it's encouraging that we are making asset management a high priority in the village and the managing of it and what we do with it going forward. So I think it's a good step forward. It gives us a lot of direction that we've been seeking for a while, and we now have it. So thank you, Stuart, for pursuing that. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Snell and Councillor Clark. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mayor Ross. Yes, I want to concur with councillors now. Thank you very much for this work here, Stuart. Yeah, you know, again, asset management has been my priority number one for a while now since I got into council. So I'm excited to see the development of that work. You know, in the past couple of years here, especially. So just to double check, I know it's written on the report, but I like to double check. It says here that costs, the detailed project scope and cost estimate is currently being developed. A total budget of approximately 200,000 is anticipated. So the funding, it's 100. We get 100% funding for this, right?
Through the chair, and yes, it is 100% funded.
Okay, that's wonderful. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And Stuart, I'd like to thank you for your work and in particular on the proposed project overview, which talks about all that we saw in November 2021. There is no doubt that the conversation has changed around what we're facing and the absolute need to not only take care of our assets, but also harden them in terms of forest fire, wildfire, and the heat domes, and also some of the flooding. So thank you very much, Stuart, much appreciated. And it allows council to be in a good position. So not seeing any other further comments, I will look to call the question. All those in favor, raise your hand and say aye. And I know the motion carries in the affirmative. Okay, so Paula, if you could outline the next report, please, 5.3.
Yes, it's the 2021 annual report, and that it be received for information. The purpose of the report is to consider the annual report for 2021, together with any submissions or questions from the public. For purposes of the community charter, this meeting is deemed to be the annual meeting. We didn't have any questions or comments from the public. It has been posted on the website and it's been advertised in the newspaper as public notice is required. And we haven't received anything at this point. So that's how we stand right now.
Okay, we are at the point where we would look for, thank you, Paula, and we would look for a motion from a counselor.
So moved.
Councillor Clark and then Councillor Snell. So it's appropriately on the floor. Any discussion from council? Seeing none, we'll go to the audience and see if there's anything from the audience in terms of any contributions. And we are, I'm not seeing anything, so I think it's time to return to council and we can have any further discussion? And if not, we can look to vote. So council, any further discussion?
No.
Not seeing any, I'll look to call the question. All those in favor, raise your hand and say aye. And I note
Aye.
that it carries in the affirmative. The ayes carry it. And so we're now on and making good movement in our agenda. We're on for reports from mayor and project lead. So under my mayor's report, I'm pleased to be able to note that National Indigenous Peoples Day is on June 21st. It coincides with summer solstice. It's a chance for people in Canada to get to know more about our Indigenous people and the different things that happen. So my second item is the RCMP division is having a Lower Mainland District's Mayor's Forum on June 26th. So I'll be heading to that this week and looking to enjoy the chance to listen for reports from the RCMP for the people that provide our policing service within Belcarre and also generally within the Lower Mainland. And then finally, my final item is the Metro Vancouver tour of the Coquitlam Water Treatment Plant. And so Metro Vancouver has invited mayors and many of them have responded. So I'm looking forward to joining my other mayor colleagues and on the 23rd going and having a tour of the Coquitlam Water Treatment Plant. And I received all the information today and it looks like a very informative tour. I found the one to Iona to be very, very helpful as you go in and do that work at Metro. So that concludes my report and I'm pleased to take any questions if there's any. Any from council, any from the public? Not seeing any. I'll look to move on. And are there any reports from any of the project leads? Not seeing those being indicated, I will move on to, we amended the agenda, so 6.2 is gone. We're now on 6.3, the official community plan review committee minutes, May 4th, 2022, and we'll look to a motion. Councillor Clark, did you
So
want to move
moved.
this one? Moved by
Yeah.
Councillor Clark and Councillor Snell. I'm seeing your hand up just a shade earlier than another hand. So it's now on the floor for any discussion. Any discussion from council? Any discussion from the audience? I've got Jim Chisholm or Sherry Chisholm. So if you could go ahead.
Hi, yeah, Sherry Chisholm.
Yep.
When is the draft copy of the OCP going to be available to the public?
That I believe is going to be addressed later in the agenda by our acting administrative officer. Is that correct,
Because it-
Dennis?
Yes, correct.
Okay,
At the last council meeting, it was promised for last Friday, the 17th, and it didn't happen.
Yes.
So I'm most anxious. Thank you.
okay. Well, we will when we get to the agenda, we'll let Dennis hopefully relieve some of that anxious feeling. So thank you, Sherry, for your contribution. So we've got that moved, and so I'm not seeing any other speakers, so we'll look to any further discussion by counselors? No, we'll look to call the question on that. All those in favor, say aye.
I,
Note that it carries in the affirmative, the ayes carry it. And so we are now on to number 7. And if I could ask Dennis to go, he's got a couple items. If you could go on those, that would be appreciated. Dennis, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. The first item that I'd like to speak to is a proposed workshop on our water system. Council will recall a couple of weeks ago or so, it was talked about, having a workshop so that council could get an opportunity to get a better understanding of all the workings and give our public works manager an opportunity to fill you in on exactly where we're at with some of the work that's ongoing as well. And tonight I'm just simply wanting to suggest to council that the date on the agenda that's shown of June 27th, I'm suggesting might be appropriate if it suits council's calendar.
Okay,
So for tonight, we can either do a show of hands or they can respond to me separately another day.
okay. Now, I see there may be an appetite to respond with a show of hands, and if need be, we can have a motion, but let's have a show of hands, see who is in agreement for that workshop on June 27th, because I see one hand up.
Aye.
I see a second hand. I see a third hand, and okay, so John, you're not indicating because you're not in favor, or you?
well, I'm in favor of the workshop for those that feel they need it.
Okay.
Absolutely. But
Okay.
I would not, I've been paying close attention to the water issues since it started and feel confident in my knowledge of how the system works. Thank you. So I support it for those that need it, but I would not be in attendance. Thank you.
Okay, well, that's more than fine. Thank you. Appreciate that. So Dennis, I think you've got an indication.
Thank you, Your Worship. With
Yeah.
that, we'll go ahead and make that arrangement. One thing I didn't add is that I believe it's council's desire to have that open to the public as well. So
Yes.
Yeah.
That was my understanding, Council. Yes.
that's the way it'll
Okay.
happen. Now, the next item on the agenda, Your Worship, is an update on the OCP. Sharon Chisholm was absolutely correct. In fact, I told her personally that we expected to have the draft up on the internet, up on our website for public viewing last Friday. And I actually did phone you, Sherry, just to confirm, well, not confirm, to let you know that our plan did not materialize. We will endeavor to have that draft up on the internet as soon as possible. We're working through a few challenges right now. And we're hoping to have an announcement the middle of this week. And when we do, I will be sure, or our office will be sure to post a notice to that effect in all the usual places, including sending a message out on the resident email address. So when it's available, it'll be widely publicized, and we'll make sure that people know that.
Okay, thank you, Dennis. And let me just pause here because I see we have a speaker. And so I'm going to return to Sherry Chisholm.
Yeah, about the draft, has the draft been distributed anywhere else?
No, it isn't. No.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And then Dennis, you have one more, I believe.
Yeah, Your Worship, the next item we want to talk about is we've made a bit of a change recently in terms of how we post notice of our closed meetings. And we did that without kind of giving any kind of public exposure to that change. And not that we've had a lot of questions, although maybe some, but I thought that I would give our corporate officer, Paula, an opportunity to just explain what we did, what we're doing different, and why we're doing it different. And I would just like to turn it over to Paul, if I may.
Yes. Paula, please go ahead.
Okay, I'm just putting something up on the screen right now. And can you hear me?
Yes, we
Okay.
can. Thank you.
Okay, so our new procedure for notice of closed meetings. Previously, closed council meetings were held after regular meetings, and the resolution to close the meeting was provided at the end of the agenda, which is what we have been doing all along. The Village of Belcarra Council Procedure Bylaw number 593, Part 2, notes in item 4.3 that closed council meetings will normally be held at 5 p.m. prior to a regular council meeting. So to reflect the closed meetings taking place at 5 p.m., this is now set out in a separate agenda and posted on the website in the same place as other agendas. So I've shown you a sample here where the council agenda for tonight was June 20th, 2022, 5 to 6:30. And this is the resolution to close the meeting. So these items will appear. There'll be two agendas for the council meetings where there's a closed meeting. The agenda will appear first, and it'll note that at 5 p.m. council will commence in an open session and go into closed. And then the regular council meeting agenda will also be posted, and that will have all the information provided at the council meeting.
Okay, thank you very much, Paul, for that.
Can I just
And-
note that if anybody has questions about finding any of that, send me an email and I will provide a link. I provide links to the website for a number of reasons for anybody who asks. So feel free to contact me if you need some assistance with that.
Okay, and we may even have a question right now from Joe Elworthy. Joe, go ahead, please.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, and thanks, Paula. Just just to clarify a little bit, didn't closed meetings occur at 5 o'clock before the meeting? Didn't we have a closed meeting? Didn't council have a closed meeting on June 13th in between council meetings, or did I miss that?
We had a special meeting.
Oh, thank
Yeah,
you.
There was a
Clarification.
special closed meeting.
No,
yeah.
no further, nothing further
Yeah.
required.
Does that make
Special
sense?
meetings closed are different.
There was a notice put up about having a closed meeting. These agendas are going up as an alternative to having the resolution at the end of a regular agenda, because it was confusing to have that happen at the end of an agenda when in fact we had the meeting previous to the council meeting.
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, and thank you, Paula, for your work on that. Much appreciated. Okay, so we will now go to bylaw 8.1, Village of Belcarra Public Notice Bylaw number 602, 2022. And it is in front of council to be adopted. So someone like to move that and second it, please? Councillor Clark moving, thank you, and Councillor Snell seconding. So it is on the floor appropriately. Any discussion from council? Not seeing anyone. And looking to the audience and not seeing anyone on this item. So it's appropriate to turn back to council and to vote on the motion that the Village of Belcarra Public Notice Bylaw number 602, 2022 be adopted. All those in favor, raise your hand. And I note that it carries, the ayes carry it, and it has passed. So thank you. And we are now on to item 9. Councillor correspondence and proclamations, that correspondence item 9.1 to 9.3 be received. So we're looking for a councillor and someone to set. Councillor Snell, thank you. And Councillor Wild, thank you. So they are received, and looking before we have there's no action items. And so let's on those motions, let's look to any discussion from anybody on council on the correspondence proclamations, any discussion from anybody in the audience? And I'm not seeing anyone. We'll return to council. All those in favor of the correspondent proclamations at items 9.1 to 9.3 be received, raise your hand and say aye. And I note that it carries in the affirmative. Okay, so we are now on to new business. Any new business? Joe, go ahead, but this is usually for council, but go ahead. Do you have a question to ask about new business?
Maybe I don't know what, no, maybe it'll go on to the questions arising from the agenda. If that
Okay,
be-
so
So I
you're-
would be as well leave till there, I think.
Yeah, yeah. If you have something, that would be the appropriate place. Okay. So anything from council? I'm not seeing anything from council, so we'll go to public question period. We will look to have, first of all, questions to do with the agenda. And then we will look to have questions not to do with the agenda. So I see two hands up. And so I've got Sherry Chisholm, then I've got Joe Elworthy, and then I have Councillor Clark. So are those three people, are those questions about things that came up during the meeting that are on the agenda?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
I'm unsure about mine. I'm unsure. Mine is more about an item that was removed from the agenda.
oh, okay. Well, we can probably have your question to answer that. And Sherry Chisholm, go ahead, please.
It's Jim. Yeah.
Oh, Jim, you go ahead then. Thank you.
Just a quick one on the workshop with regards to the water system and so forth.
Yep.
Will that be recorded so other people can watch it another day? I presume
Yeah.
it's on Zoom.
Yeah, I would presume it would be, and it would be on Zoom and it would be recorded. That is our practice, but I'll defer to our Chief Administrative Officer, Acting Dennis Back. Go ahead, please.
A short answer, your worship, yes, it will be.
Okay, perfect. Thank you
Thank you.
for the question, Jim.
Thank you.
Councillor Clark, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mayor Ross. My question, I guess, is to the chair, to Dennis. When can we expect the report on the water system? From day and night, I guess?
Actually, could I defer that or refer that question to Stuart? I'm not sure what date we're expecting that.
Sure, I think it was supposed to be end of June, and
I don't know the answer offhand.
we're there.
Okay,
Thank
so
you.
fair enough. Let's go through the chair to Stuart, please. Did you
Thank
get the
you, Mayor Ross.
question?
Yes. There were two studies that were ongoing from WSP. One was the water modeling, and that was the one that was expected to be completed by the end of June. So we still haven't started the calibration because we were trying to wait till the system was stressed in the hot weather when people are using the most of the water. So it is being pushed. I don't see us getting it done until at least the middle of July at this point, just simply because of the weather. But that's what we have left to do for that.
Okay. And Councillor Clark, does that answer your question?
It does, thank you.
Okay, thank you, and good job being a weather person too, Stuart. That's great. Joe Elworthy, you are going to ask a question about something that's not on the agenda.
Was
And-
on the agenda.
Yeah,
but Was removed from the agenda.
yeah. So
And
why don't we
Or-
say, go ahead on that and we'll do our
Can I
best.
do that? Yeah,
Yes.
If it's out of order, I'll accept that.
No, it's in order.
It's in order, thank you. And it's procedural question, okay? More than anything, because, as we know, there was a very controversial motion, well documented in the minutes, right? And some would say may have been a hijacked motion, and there's all kinds of versions, but I'm not going to go into that. It was a controversial motion. And in fact, some councillors admitted openly on camera throughout the debate that they voted the wrong way, right? That can be reviewed, by the way, on tape, right? And then this motion comes forward for today's council, which is what I would refer to as an appeasement motion. Pretty hard to say no to, but essentially, the motion would have tabled the motion from the previous meeting. Because the motion from the previous meeting directs staff to come back on the issue of amending the bylaws pertaining to sprinklers. That was the end result of section C of that long convoluted motion. This motion then would have essentially tabled that, directing staff to come back again. And it was a convoluted motion, I should tell you, with words like approach and users and could have, and I don't want to go into it. The mover isn't here. But is my question to council is the motion essentially active from the previous meeting? Will staff be coming back now with a recommendation to change the bylaws to allow for sprinkler use only for water because a motion put forward, which is no longer there. So I'm confused. So maybe if you can help me or somebody can help me, I'd appreciate that. I'm sorry if I'm also convoluting other people, but this is a complex and very, very important health and safety issues that does not affect just users of water. This is everybody in Belcarra, everybody, every single family and every single visitor to every home, not just users. Thank you.
Okay, so we're gonna, Dennis had his hand up first. He'll take do a response to this, and then I may make a response too. But go ahead, Dennis, please.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you to Mr. Elworthy. Yes, it's correct that council in recommendation C that you referred to did instruct that a bylaw amendment be brought forward that would allow the connection of the community water system or domestic water system to a house for sprinkler purposes only. This motion that is being deferred because Councillor Drake is unable to be with us at this time will also be coming forward at the next meeting. And from that, they'll, if it passes, staff will be reporting back on that. How I see this happening is that it's a question of sequencing. If council is going to be asking for a report back on a health issue, I would think that they would want to see that report either at the same time or before the report on the connection issue. So it's on our list of things to do, and it's just a question of either bringing them forth together or at least having this motion dealt with first. So that's how we're planning to approach that, Your Worship.
Thank you.
And the essence of this motion is that it be safe, whatever is brought forward. So thank you, Dennis, and thank you, Joe, for your question. And we will canvass, see if anybody else has any questions from during the meeting. Not seeing any that aren't on the agenda. Not seeing any. We'll note that we are precariously close to being at the end. I would say that I'm going to call for any further questions. Councillor Snell.
Yeah, I would say this evening's a first. We, generally speaking, when our guests of honour have delivered their presentation, they disappear from the meeting, and here we are with our first guest still on the screen. So that's the first for the village. Thank you.
Yeah, good catch, Councillor Snell, and thank you, Bonita. You get a not only being part of a record meeting, but thank you very much for staying. We appreciate that. So at this point, I'm not seeing any further speakers, so I would look for Councillor to move that the June 20th, 2022 regular meeting be adjourned at
Moved.
7:55 p.m. So I got Councillor Wilder and Councillor Snell. All those in favor, raise your hand and say aye. And I note that
Aye.
it carries in the
Aye.
affirmative.
Aye.
We have close to a Belcarra record, if not a Belcarra record. So thank you, everybody.
All right, thank you.
Good
Thank
night,
you.
everybody.
Thank you again,
Bye.
Bonita, for being there for
Bye.
the duration. Take
Yeah,
care,
thank
everyone.
you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you, Bonita, for being here.
Yes, thank you. See you.
Thanks, everybody.